Long ago in the distant world of ancient Greece, the land was divided into many small kingdoms, each ruled by kings, warriors, and noble families. These kingdoms were surrounded by rolling hills, quiet valleys, olive groves, and coastlines that shimmered beneath the sun. Life moved at a gentler pace. People farmed the land, sailed the seas, worshipped the gods, and told stories beneath the stars. Across the wide blue waters of the Aegean Sea stood a magnificent city called Troy, also known as Ilion. Troy was rich, powerful, and well protected. Its massive stone walls rose high into the sky, so strong and tall that many believed the city could never fall. Merchants traveled to Troy from distant lands, bringing silk, gold, spices, and precious goods. The streets of Troy were filled with the quiet sounds of daily life, footsteps on stone, soft voices in marketplaces, the gentle clatter of trade, and the distant echo of temple bells. Troy was ruled by King Priam, a wise and aging king, known for his patience, kindness, and devotion to his people. At his side was Queen Hecuba, strong, proud, and protective of her family. Together, they had many children, sons and daughters, who would one day shape the fate of their city. Among them was Prince Hector, a noble warrior, brave, honorable, and loyal to Troy. And there was Prince Paris, younger, handsome, gentle in nature, and known more for charm than for battle. Paris was often drawn to beauty, music, art, and the quiet pleasures of life, unaware that destiny was slowly guiding him toward a choice that would change history. Meanwhile, on the Greek mainland, powerful kingdoms were also thriving. One of the greatest was Mycenae, ruled by King Agamemnon, a fierce leader, ambitious, commanding, and hungry for glory. Nearby lay Sparta, a land of discipline, honor, and strength, ruled by King Menelaus. Sparta was famous for its warriors, its strict laws, and its queen, the legendary Helen, said to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Her beauty was described as breathtaking, radiant, almost divine. Poets whispered that even the gods admired her. At this time, the Greek kings lived in relative peace, bound together by alliances, promises, and shared traditions. The seas were calm, trade flourished, and no great war threatened the land. But unseen forces were already at work. The gods of Mount Olympus, watching from above, often involved themselves in the lives of humans, guiding events, whispering into hearts, and shaping fate for their own purposes. Small decisions, quiet rivalries, and divine pride were beginning to form like distant thunder on the horizon. The world seemed peaceful, balanced, and whole, yet beneath the calm surface, destiny was slowly stirring, preparing to unfold, a conflict that would echo through centuries, a war sparked not only by swords, but by pride, beauty, and the subtle will of the gods. And so the stage was set for the beginning of the Trojan War. High above the world of humans, on the shining peak of Mount Olympus, the gods often gathered to celebrate, to argue, and to quietly shape the fate of mortals. One day, a grand wedding was held to honor Peleus, a mortal hero, and Thetis, a sea goddess. The halls of Olympus glowed with golden light, soft music, gentle laughter, and endless luxury. The gods arrived in splendor, draped in flowing robes, their presence calm, powerful, and eternal. But one goddess, Eris, the spirit of discord, was not invited. She was known for chaos, for stirring jealousy, for quietly planting seeds of conflict. Feeling insulted and cast aside, Eris devised a subtle revenge. She did not shout. She did not rage. Instead, she threw a single golden apple into the celebration. The apple gleamed like sunlight on water, and carved upon it were the words to the fairest. As the apple rolled across the floor, 3 goddesses claimed it at once. Hera, queen of the gods, majestic, proud, and regal. Athena, goddess of wisdom, strategy, and intelligence. And Aphrodite, goddess of love, beauty, and desire. Each believed she was the most deserving. A quiet tension spread through the divine gathering, soft at first, then slowly growing. Zeus, king of the gods, watched carefully, but chose not to decide, knowing the choice could bring resentment among immortals. Instead, he turned the decision over to a mortal, a young Trojan prince named Paris. Far below Olympus, Paris lived a gentle life among green hills, soft meadows, and grazing sheep. He was handsome, thoughtful, and drawn to beauty, music, and peaceful things. Unlike his brother Hector, Paris was not shaped by war. He preferred calm, love, and art. One quiet day, the god Hermes appeared before him, guiding him to fulfill a destiny he did not yet understand. Paris soon found himself standing before the 3 goddesses, each radiant, each powerful, each silently certain of her superiority. They asked him to judge who among them was the fairest. Paris hesitated, aware that choosing one might anger the others. One by one, the goddesses offered him gifts. Hera promised power, a vast kingdom, and dominion over many lands. Athena promised wisdom, skill in battle, and unmatched intelligence. Then Aphrodite spoke, softly, sweetly, like a warm breeze. She promised him love, not just any love, but the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. Her name was Helen of Sparta. Paris felt his heart stir, drawn by the idea of beauty, romance, and desire. Slowly, he lifted the golden apple and placed it into the hands of Aphrodite. In that moment, a quiet decision shifted the fate of nations. Hera's pride was wounded, Athena's anger smoldered, and Aphrodite smiled softly. Having won, Paris returned home, unaware that his choice had already begun to ripple outward like a stone dropped into still water. The gods themselves began to take sides. Subtle rivalries formed. Whispers moved through Olympus, and destiny turned. Another slow page. What seemed like a small decision, a simple judgment about beauty, would soon ignite a war shaped by pride, love, jealousy, and divine will. And the path toward Troy's fate quietly unfolded. Far across the sea, in the disciplined land of Sparta, lived Queen Helen, a woman whose beauty was spoken of in whispers, songs, and poetry. They said her face could calm storms, soften hearts, and inspire both love and longing. She was married to King Menelaus, a proud ruler, a respected warrior, and a man devoted to his kingdom. Sparta itself was a land of order, strength, and tradition, where honor mattered deeply and loyalty was sacred. Meanwhile, Paris of Troy remembered the promise made by Aphrodite, the promise of love, of beauty, and of destiny fulfilled. Guided by the goddess, Paris sailed across the sea, his ships moving slowly over shimmering waters, carried by warm winds and quiet fate. When he arrived in Sparta, he was welcomed as a royal guest, honored with feasts, music, and hospitality. In the golden halls of Menelaus's palace, Paris met Helen for the first time. Their eyes met, and time seemed to soften, to slow, To pause. Under Aphrodite's influence, Helen felt her heart pulled toward Paris, as if drawn by invisible threads. Some stories say she left willingly, carried by love and curiosity. Others say she was taken, her fate guided, by divine will. But all stories agree on one truth. Helen left Sparta and sailed to Troy with Prince Paris. When Menelaus discovered her absence, his heart filled with grief, anger, and wounded pride. To him, it was not only a personal loss, but a public insult, an offense against his honor and his kingdom. Menelaus called upon an ancient oath, a promise made long ago by many Greek kings, an oath to defend Helen's marriage and punish any who wronged it. He sent messengers across Greece, their footsteps echoing through cities, their words carried over hills and across seas. They summoned kings, warriors, and heroes. Agamemnon of Mycenae, Menelaus's powerful brother, answered the call, seeing both duty and opportunity for glory. Soon, legendary figures began to gather. Achilles, swift, fearless, and nearly invincible. Odysseus, clever, thoughtful, and known for his sharp mind. Ajax, strong, unyielding, and mighty in battle. Many others joined, bringing ships, weapons, and loyal soldiers. Across the coastline, a massive fleet formed, hundreds of ships resting quietly on the shore, their sails waiting to catch the wind. The air grew heavy with anticipation, with ambition, with destiny. Meanwhile, in Troy, Helen arrived within the towering walls, where merchants traded, temples stood, and life continued. Unaware of what was coming, some welcomed her, seeing beauty and royal honor. Others whispered in concern, sensing trouble in her presence. And King Priam and Prince Hector began to understand that this choice, this love, or this theft might bring terrible consequences. But fate had already moved forward. The Greek ships soon began their journey, cutting across the darkening sea, their destination clear. Troy, a war was no longer a distant possibility. It was becoming inevitable, and the slow march toward conflict had truly begun. The Greek fleet eventually reached the distant shores of Troy, their ships resting quietly on the sand, their sails fluttering in the sea breeze. Before them rose the mighty city, its towering walls standing tall, strong, and seemingly unbreakable. The Greeks set up camp along the coastline, rows of tents stretching across the shore, fires glowing softly at night, their smoke drifting into the dark sky. And so the long war began. Years passed, slowly, patiently, marked by skirmishes, raids, and battles that ebbed and flowed like the tide. Among the Greek warriors, one name stood above all others: Achilles. He was young, swift, powerful, and feared by both enemies and allies. Legends whispered that he was nearly invincible, protected by divine fate, except for one hidden weakness. Achilles fought with unmatched strength, his presence on the battlefield like a storm rolling across the plain. Yet even heroes carried burdens, pride, anger, and grief quietly shaped his heart. Across Troy's walls stood its greatest defender, Prince Hector. Noble, brave, and devoted to his people, Hector fought not for glory, but for home, family, and duty. He walked the streets of Troy, speaking gently to his wife Andromache and holding his young son, knowing each battle might be his last. Above them all, the gods watched. From Mount Olympus, They observed the unfolding war, sometimes amused, sometimes conflicted, often intervening in human affairs. Hera and Athena favored the Greeks, still angered by Paris's choice. Aphrodite protected Troy, especially Paris, whom she had promised to reward. Ares, god of war, thrilled in chaos, while Apollo often guided Trojan warriors. The battlefield became not only a clash of mortals, but a quiet struggle between divine wills. At times, a warrior might feel sudden strength or unexpected fear, as though touched by unseen hands. Victories came and were lost again and again. Then came a moment of deep sorrow. Achilles withdrew from battle, angered by an insult to his pride. Without him, the Greeks faltered, their confidence shaken, their progress slowed. To inspire them, Achilles' beloved companion, Patroclus, entered battle, wearing Achilles' armor, hoping to turn the tide. But fate was unkind. Patroclus was slain by Hector, the noble prince of Troy. When news reached Achilles, his grief was vast, quiet, and burning. His sorrow transformed into a storm of rage. He returned to the battlefield, seeking Hector, driven by heartbreak and fury. Their clash shook the earth, a duel between two heroes representing two destinies. In the end, Hector fell. Troy mourned, and its people felt the weight of despair. Yet still, the city did not fall. The walls remained standing. The war continued, and years passed in slow exhaustion. Both sides grew weary, burdened by loss, by longing, and by fate. And through it all, the gods continued to whisper, to influence, and to quietly guide the course of the war. As the years passed, the Trojan War began to feel less like a glorious conflict and more like a quiet burden carried by both sides. The battlefield grew familiar, marked by fallen weapons, softly rusting armor, and the silent memory of those who would never return. Both Greeks and Trojans felt the slow weight of exhaustion, grief, and fading hope. The greatest heroes were not untouched by time or fate. Achilles, once fierce and unstoppable, continued to fight with unmatched skill, yet his heart was heavy with loss and anger and sorrow. Despite his strength, even Achilles could not escape destiny. Prophecies whispered that his life would end far from home, his glory forever remembered, but his fate sealed. One quiet day, as the war dragged on, an arrow flew across the battlefield, guided not only by human aim, but by divine will. It struck Achilles in his only vulnerable place, bringing an end to the life of the mightiest Greek warrior. The Greek camp fell into deep mourning. Fires burned lower, voices softened, and songs of honor echoed through the night. Across Troy, even enemies recognized the weight of his passing. Meanwhile, Troy itself began to feel the strain of war. Supplies dwindled, the people grew tired, and the joy once found in the city's streets slowly faded. Parents feared for their children, wives waited for husbands who might never return, and the once bright future seemed uncertain. The Trojan defenders fought bravely, but the loss of Hector still lingered, leaving a quiet emptiness in the heart of the city. The gods, ever watchful, continued to guide events from above. Some whispered that Troy's fate was already sealed, written long before the war even began. Others spoke of a final turning point, a moment that would decide the war's outcome, not through strength, but through cleverness and patience. Among the Greeks, the warrior Odysseus began to shape a plan born not from force, but from imagination and quiet intelligence, as both armies waited, rested, and prepared. A sense of inevitability settled over the land like the slow setting of the sun, signaling the end of a long day. The Trojan War was approaching its final chapter, and fate moved gently, yet unavoidably, toward its conclusion. After many long years, the war had grown tired, not only for the soldiers, but for the land itself. The wind over the battlefield felt quieter, the campfires burned lower, and even the clash of swords seemed less eager than before. The Greeks, weary from battle, realized that Troy could not be taken by force alone. Its walls remained tall, its gates strong, its spirit bruised, but unbroken. It was then that Odysseus, known for his clever mind, offered a different kind of weapon, not strength, not speed, but strategy. He suggested a plan so subtle, so unexpected, that it felt almost like a whisper rather than a roar. The Greeks began to build a massive wooden horse, towering, hollow, and carefully crafted. Its wooden surface smelled of pine and fresh-cut timber as skilled hands shaped it into a magnificent illusion. Inside the horse, a small group of elite warriors hid in silence, patient, still, barely breathing. When the horse was complete, the Greek army pretended to abandon the war. They burned their tents, sailed their ships away, and left the shoreline empty, quiet, and still. When the Trojans awoke to see the beach deserted, confusion spread through the city. Cautiously, they stepped beyond the gates, their footsteps echoing across the sand. There, they found the great wooden horse, standing alone like a mysterious offering. Some warned that it could be a trick, a hidden danger, a final deception. Others believed it was a gift, a symbol of surrender, or a sacred offering to the gods. After much discussion, curiosity, and hope, the Trojans opened their gates wide and slowly pulled the horse into their city. That night, Troy filled with celebration. People believed the war was finally over. Music drifted through the streets, laughter echoed beneath lantern light, and tired hearts felt a brief return of peace. But inside the horse, the hidden warriors waited, still, silent, listening to the distant sounds of joy. As darkness deepened and the city fell asleep, the warriors emerged, softly, carefully, like shadows, slipping into moonlight. They opened the gates, letting the Greek army return under cover of night. Soon, the once peaceful streets were filled with chaos, firelight, and hurried footsteps. Troy, the proud city, the city of tall walls, the city of legend, was finally overtaken. And so, through patience, cleverness, and deception, the long war reached its tragic end. When morning came, a pale dawn rose over the ruins of Troy. The once great city, proud, wealthy, and radiant, now stood silent, its streets scattered with ash, broken stone, and fading echoes of what had been. The fires of the night burned low, and a soft wind carried away the smoke of war. Those who survived wandered quietly, searching for loved ones, grieving losses, and trying to understand how everything had changed. Among the survivors was Aeneas, a Trojan prince, guided by destiny to flee the fallen city, carrying memories, hope, and the weight of the past. He journeyed onward, his story destined to inspire new legends. and new civilizations. The Greek victors, though triumphant, did not find the peace they expected. Many heroes faced their own long journeys home, filled with hardship, storms, and trials. Odysseus would wander the seas, for years his path shaped by patience, loss, and longing. Others returned home, only to meet new struggles, reminding them that even victory does not guarantee happiness. As time passed, the Trojan War slowly shifted from memory into myth. Poets and storytellers began to retell the tale, softening its violence and highlighting its lessons of pride, love, ambition, and fate. The war lived on in epic poems like the Iliad, which spoke of rage, heroes, and honor, and the Odyssey, which told of long journeys, clever minds, and the longing for home. Across generations, people listened to these stories around fires, in quiet halls, beneath starlit skies, and the Trojan War became more than history. It became a reminder of human emotion, the cost of conflict, and the slow turning of destiny. As centuries passed, Troy faded into legend, then into archaeology, then into quiet memory. Yet its story still lingers in books, in art, in film, and in the gentle echoes of ancient voices. And now, as this tale softly comes to an end, you can allow your thoughts to grow calm, your breathing to slow, and your mind to rest. The story of the Trojan War drifts into silence like embers fading in the night. Thank you for listening to Boring History for Sleep. May your dreams be peaceful and your rest be deep. Good night